Hello everybody. Today we are going to start the second part of infertility. Yesterday you have seen male infertility. Today we are going to see, yesterday you have seen female. Today we are going to see male infertility. We know that the joy of parenthood is something which is great. And every couple, very rarely there are couples, they don't want this joy. So majority of the couples, they are eagerly waiting for this joy to be fulfilled in their life. But there are certain unfortunate couples where they are not able to get this joy, and they are called as infertile couples. So, definition of infertility is the couple unable to conceive after 1 year of unprotected intercourse. This definition is changed to 6 months if the age of partners is above 35 years. That means if the age is above 35, we consider that we have to start investigating couple after 6 months of trial. This infertility can be divided into primary and secondary. As the name suggests, primary is the couple never conceived, and secondary, there is at least one pregnancy irrespective of the outcome. Even if it is abortion, it is termed as a secondary infertility. The incidence of such unfortunate couples is 10 to 20%. If we see etiology, as the pregnancy is a combined project, we will see that the female factors are responsible in 40%, male factors in 25%, male and female both in 20%, and in 15% of the patients or couples, we are not able to identify or pinpoint the diagnosis, that where exactly is the problem, they are not able to conceive. First of all, we will see what is required for conception. Conception is not only meeting of sperm and ovum. It is not that simple process. We can see that there has to be a deposition of sperms high in vagina at the time of ovulation, because the ova after ovulation can stay into ampulla of the tube just for 24 hours. The sperms deposited into vagina, they can remain alive for 72 hours. They are able to fertilize. So this timing should match. After that, the sperm should be functional enough to fertilize the ova. Then there has to be a patency of the tube, so that the fertilized embryo will get transported into the endometrial cavity. In the endometrial cavity, the endometrial bed should be receptive for implantation. And for these sperms to get transported, the cervical mucus should be friendly enough. It should not have some antibodies which will hamper the motility of these sperms. So now we can see that it is not only meeting of the sperm and ova, but it contains, there has to be a spermatogenesis, there has to be a normal sperm function, there should be normal outflow tract of the male, so that the sperms will be deposited into the vagina. The normal sexual function is required for such deposition, and the timing of deposition should match ovulation. This is on the male side. On female side, there has to be ovulation, then the fertilization should take place. There has to be a patent tract, tube and endometrial cavity and cervix, and cervical mucus should be friendly, and the endometrium should be receptive. So such a complex process is required for a conception, and evaluation of both partners should start simultaneously to have good results. As we are going to see male infertility, we will see some silent features of spermatogenesis. We have seen yesterday that there is usually ovulation takes place and one or two mature ova they will get out of the ovary into the tube. But unlike ovary, testis, it continues production of sperms throughout the life after puberty. Approximately 100 to 200 million sperms are produced each day as compared to one ovum per month. How this production takes place? The follicle stimulating hormone, as in female, it stimulates the ovary. Here it stimulates the spermatogenesis from basal cells of seminiferous tubules. LH also has the role, just like in female. It stimulates secretion of testosterone from the Leydig cell. We know that there are Sertoli cells and there are Leydig cells. Okay. So what is the function of Sertoli cell? The Sertoli cell, it forms the atmosphere. It covers the germ cell and it forms the atmosphere which is permissible for spermatogenesis. High levels of androgen is required for spermatogenesis and maturation. So this level of testosterone needs to be maintained, and that too the local level of testosterone. If we give testosterone's replacement from outside, it will not act as efficiently as endogenous testosterone. Okay. We also know that the scrotal temperature, it should be 1 to 2% points less, not percent, points less than the body temperature. Why? Because spermatogenesis requires that lower temperature. And we know, we have learned it in anatomy, that how this is achieved. There is a rich venous plexus into the scrotum. So the scrotal skin is quite porous. So what happens? The blood having water into this water will evaporate, and just like the pot which we use in summer days to cool the water, the scrotal temperature will also get reduced. Okay. This overall process of spermatogenesis, it is controlled by genes on Y chromosome. We know that around 14 days are required for maturation of the ovum. Here, 74 days are required for genesis and maturation of the sperm. One crop of the sperms, and another 15 to 20 days are required to reach the ampulla of vas. Then they are ready for ejaculation. That means when we collect the semen sample, it gives the results of events of last 3 months. So when we start any treatment for abnormal spermatogenesis, we can expect the effects after 3 months. Okay. So these are certain silent features of spermatogenesis. Okay. Now we will see what is the structure of the sperm and function of the sperm. We all know that if a sperm is having head, it is having middle piece or neck, it is having tail. Okay. In the head, there is a nucleus acrosome. What is the work of this nucleus? It contains genetic material. There is a centriole which is required for the division of genetic material, because the sperm contains haploid number of chromosomes. Okay. Now this acrosome is having very important function. It is ahead of the nucleus, and this helps sperm to dissolve the zona pellucida, so that this nucleus, it can enter into the ovum and fertilize it. Okay. In the middle piece, there is a mitochondria. You know what is the work of mitochondria? It is in providing energy. Why the energy is required? We have seen that the sperms, they are deposited high into the vagina, and they have to travel throughout the cervix, through the endometrial cavity and to the tubes, and they have to reach the ampulla of the cervix, ampulla of the tube. Okay. So the energy is required over here. Then the tail. This tail is having, or it is having work of propulsion. It gives a forward moving motility to the sperm. Every part of this sperm is very important. So when we study morphology of the sperm, we divide it into the head abnormalities, neck abnormalities, tail abnormalities. And accordingly, we will know that where will be the effect and what should be the treatment of such abnormality. So it's not only spermatogenesis, but the sperm should be normal in structure and the function. So it is not only spermatogenesis, but it is a normal sperm which is required. Okay. Now, coming to a social part of male infertility. The male infertility, even though it is responsible for almost 40% of the cases, including unique male or only male and combined, it is most difficult to treat or deal. Why? First of all, it is a cultural stigma. We see in OPD that usually a female partner comes first for treatment of infertility. It becomes very difficult to call a male partner. So there is no acceptance that the male is equally required for reproduction. Then there is a problem of male ego. There is a fear that if there is any abnormality into the spermatogenesis or in a fertility of a male, then the family will get disturbed. So there is a male ego, and most of the times there is ignorance. They feel that the female herself can bear a baby, and if the problem is there, it is only in a female. We have seen that in last decade or so, there used to be 2 or 3 or 4 marriages because one wife is not able to conceive. They will marry second time. She is also not able to conceive, and they just don't know that they will also be required. There may be a problem in male as well. So up till now, we are finding that male infertility is most difficult to deal with. Okay. Now, as today's topic is about male infertility, we'll see that the male factors, how they are responsible for infertility. They are divided into pre-testicular, testicular, post-testicular, and idiopathic. Okay? The pre-testicular, they are responsible for 1 to 2%. What do we mean by pre-testicular? They are usually problems in producing hormones for sperm production. Because these hormones, FSH and LH, they control the spermatogenesis. It is called as pre-testicular. Okay. What do we mean by testicular? It is actually a sperm production problem. Okay. There may be a genetic cause. There may be failure of testes to descend, infection, torsion of the testes, varicocele, some drugs affecting spermatogenesis. There may be radiation damage to the testes. There may be sperm antibodies, or there may be a thermal factor which will affect the sperm production. Okay. Now, what do we mean by post-testicular? That the formation of testes is okay over here, but then there is blockage of the sperm transport. Maybe because of infection, maybe because of post radiated problems, absence of the vas deferens, or there may be a vasectomy, or there may be a prostate surgery which is causing problem in formation of the semen. There may be damage to the nerve causing sexual dysfunction. There may be ejaculation problems, psychological problems can be there. Timing of intercourse may not match to the ovulation, or there may be some medication which is affecting libido of the patient. They are called as post-testicular. So this is how we divide the problems in spermatogenesis or male factors which are responsible for infertility. Okay. Now we'll see these pre-post and pre-testicular and post-testicular causes in detail. Okay. What are the pre-testicular causes? We have seen that they are usually hypothalamic disorders. One is called as Kallmann syndrome. Here there is absent puberty and the patient is not able to smell or perceive the smell. Okay. There may be hyperprolactinemia, which will affect or having a negative feedback over FSH. Hypothyroidism can also affect secretion of FSH and LH. Diabetes, obesity, stress, drugs, alcohol, and smoking. All of them, they come as a pre-testicular factors. They usually affect spermatogenesis or they may affect even sperm function. We have seen that these two are different things. Spermatogenesis is genesis of the sperms. Sperm function is able to move, able to penetrate, unable to fertilize the ovum. Okay. Obesity, stress, and diabetes, they can affect the effective deposition of the sperm into the vagina as well. We have seen that there are 4 things which are required. We have seen that there has to be a spermatogenesis, there has to be a normal sperm function, there should be a normal outflow tract, there should be a normal sexual function, and timing of the deposition. So every cause we will be dividing, or we will be seeing that how it affects the all these 4. So spermatogenesis, sperm function, and deposition, all of these they can be affected by pre-testicular causes. Okay. Now what are the testicular causes? Most important is chromosomal defect, Klinefelter syndrome. What has happened here? There is one extra X chromosome. Because the division, we have seen the work of centriole is to equally divide in haploid numbers. If that centriole doesn't function normally, there can be XXY chromosomes 47, which is called as Klinefelter syndrome. There can be Gardner syndrome, where there is a ciliary disorder overall. That is, into the vas deferens, into the lungs, everywhere there the ciliary function disorder is there. Usually it is affected with the bronchiectasis. It is associated with the bronchiectasis. Okay. There can be a Y chromosome deletion, or there can be a single gene mutation as well. These are all affecting the spermatogenesis. Okay. Cryptorchidism means undescended testes. We know that the testes, they develop into the peritoneal cavity and then they descend into the scrotum. Premature births, we can usually see this, that the undescended testes incidence is more, and if unless until we treat it within first to 3 years of the life, the testes, they are not able to function or they are not able to do the spermatogenesis because of increased temperature. So undescended testes is a major cause of testicular cause. Okay. What happens in varicocele? In varicocele, the venous congestion is there, and because of that venous congestion, there is affection in the scrotal temperature, and usually the motility of the sperm is affected, if not the concentration of the sperms. Orchitis, inflammation or infection of the testes, maybe mumps, TB, gonorrhea, or trauma. Okay? There are certain drugs which also cause or affect the spermatogenesis, and the thermal factor. The way person is working, the person is working near hot furnace, person is working in a hotel kitchen, various thermal factors are there. Very tight underclothing where there is no aeration, and which will affect the temperature of the scrotum. So the testicular factors, they usually affect the spermatogenesis, or they affect function of the sperm even though sperm is produced. Okay. Usually they don't affect the deposition of the sperms. Now what are the post-testicular causes? Usually congenital absence of the vas deferens. There may be inflammatory block into the vas. There may be surgical trauma at the time of herniorrhaphy or any other surgery like hydrocele repair. There may be infections, orchitis, which cause the fragmentation of the sperm. When the sperm was formed, it was normal, but while it is traveling through the epididymis, there may be fragmentation, or there may be apoptosis. Okay, there may be sperm antibodies, and that is why they cause agglutination of the sperms, and it will affect the forward motility of the sperms. There may be urethral abnormalities like epispadias or hypospadias, and because of that, it is not possible to deposit the sperms effectively high in the vagina. There may be sexual dysfunction affecting libido. There may be erectile dysfunction. There may be premature ejaculation. Such problems can be there, which are called as sexual dysfunction. Okay, all they affect the sperm function or the effective deposition of the sperm into the vagina. Okay, so we have seen these causes, that how the spermatogenesis or sperm function is affected. Now, how do we evaluate? Detailed history of a male partner is equally important as a female partner. And that is why the evaluation should start simultaneously. Okay. First of all, occupation. My occupation, one is thermal factor. If they are working near hot furnace, into the kitchen of the hotel and all these things, even in the railway engines. Okay. Any other reason why we should know occupation related with the stress? If they are executives, if they're holding such a position where the stress is more, it will affect the spermatogenesis as a hypothalamic factor. It will affect the hormone production. Any other reason why we should know occupation? If they're working or migratory population, if they're drivers, if they're working in military, if they're having the job which contains touring, they're to move from one place to another, there is high chance that the fertile period can be missed or the frequency of coitus is less. And that is why we should know occupation of the husband in detail. Okay. Now, we should also know addiction of the husband in detail, because we know that the alcohol in any form, nicotine in any form, they're having negative effect on spermatogenesis, sperm motility, and sperm function. So we should know in detail the addiction or the level of addiction as well. We should know coital frequency and problems of the intercourse, because so many times there can be ignorance, there may be real pain, dyspareunia can be there, and because of which the coital frequency is less, which may not match the ovulation timing. And we have seen such a complex process of conception that not only deposition of the sperm in vagina, but it should match the ovulation as well. Okay. History of mumps, tuberculosis, trauma to the scrotum, surgery like herniorrhaphy, we must inquire about. History of any medical disorder like diabetes, history of chemo or radiotherapy. So, history in detail is very important. Okay. Clinical examination. So many times this part is avoided. Being a female gynecologist, she may not ask, but we can refer to male if the patient is not comfortable, or we may examine ourselves. Okay. So clinical examination is very important. I have seen a patient or a couple coming for the investigation of infertility, married for last 3 years. And when I have sent patient to Euro OPD for examination, to their surprise, they found out that there are undescended testes. The age of patient is 26 years, and the person is not even aware that there is some abnormality, there is undescended testes. So in examination, clinical examination is very important. Okay, it should start from secondary sexual characters as in female, because we have seen that there are certain syndromes which affect secretion and they are hypogonadotropic. They may affect the secondary sexual characters. Even in Klinefelter syndrome, the secondary sexual characters will be affected. Okay, so the hair distribution, development of other secondary sexual characters must be seen. Evidence of gynecomastia, again, it should be seen as a adverse secondary sexual character, as we see hirsutism in females. BMI to be noted, because adequate BMI or the appropriate BMI for male and female both is between 20 to 25. The BMI less than that may indicate malnourishment. BMI above 25 is obesity, which will affect spermatogenesis adversely. We to rule out undescended testes, we to rule out infection, any tenderness, varicocele, hypospadias or epispadias, and any evidence of surgery. Okay. So clinical examination is very important in evaluation. Unless we do this clinical examination, we are not able to decide that what investigation we are going to tell. Okay. Now, what investigations we advise? Semen analysis is the first part. Some blood investigations, imaging, genetic studies, testicular biopsy, and sperm function test. So these are 6 parts in which we do investigations. We'll see one by one. Semen analysis. This is the first step in investigations. Okay. Most important is collection of the sample. It is best done by masturbation. Coitus interruptus is not a very good choice because we don't guarantee the collection of adequate semen. Okay, sample should reach within the lab within 2 hours is the maximum limit. Ideal is 30 minutes. Okay, it is better that if we advise them to collect sample into the lab itself. Okay, coitus is to be avoided for 3 to 4 days prior to collection. Why? If this abstinence period is very less, it will affect the count adversely. The count will be less. And if the abstinence period is more than 4 days, then the motility will be less because they are stored sperms and they are becoming old. So the motility will be affected. So it should be appropriate abstinence of 3 to 4 days. Okay. We should not advise them to use condom to collect the sample because the condom may contain a spermicidal gel and it is to be avoided. See, what happens is we just write down that get the semen analysis done, but we should proactively tell them all these things. Why? They are not going to ask. Usually there is hesitation in asking by male partner. So we should be proactive in telling them that this is a prerequisite for a semen analysis. Okay. Now, what are the WHO parameters of 2010 for all these points of the semen? There is a liquefaction time. The semen immediately after ejaculation is solid. It gets liquefied. It should get liquefied within 60 minutes. If it doesn't get liquefied, usually there is a prostatic dysfunction. Okay. The volume, these are the lower reference limits. Okay. So volume should be more than 1.5 ml. If the volume is less than that, it is called as hypospermia. If there is no ejaculation, it is called as aspermia. Okay. The reason may be retrograde ejaculation, or there may be a sexual dysfunction. So there may be a block. So there may be aspermia or hypospermia. The color of semen is also important. It should be opalescent white. If it is yellowish, greenish, then it indicates infection. The pH should be more than 7.1. If the pH is less or the semen is acidic, it is usually because of chronic inflammation. Okay. Concentration. Usually we see concentration not as an absolute count, but per ml count, which is more important. So if the count is less than 15 million per ml of ejaculate, it is called as oligozoospermia. If there are no sperms seen into the ejaculate, it is called as azoospermia. Okay. Now we see the motility of the sperms as well, and there should be 32% forward motility, forward progressive motility of grade 3 to 4. This motility is graded into 4. Grade 1 is no motility, or grade 0 is no motility. Grade 1 is very sluggishly motile, or they are motile at the one place only, there is no progressive motility. Grade 2 is very sluggish forward progressive. 3 and 4, they are adequately forward progressive motility. Why it is required? Because sperm has to cross the cervix, uterine cavity, and the tubes for fertilization. If the motility is affected, they are called as asthenozoospermia. Vitality. At the time of examination, at least 50% sperm should be alive, and we are examining them within 2 hours. Okay. Morphology. We have seen the morphology of the sperms. At least 4% they should be normal. If the value is less than that, it is called as teratozoospermia. If the motility is affected, it is asthenozoospermia. Okay. Normally, the leukocytes are not remarkably present into the semen. The count should be less than 1 million. If the count is more, it usually indicates infection, and we must investigate further for it. Okay. There is one test which is called as MAR test. Less than 50% sperms with bound particles should be there. If the sperms are agglutinated together, it usually indicates that there is immunological problem into the semen itself. The sperm antibodies can be in male as well, and it will cause the agglutination of the sperms. If they are into the female, yesterday you must have seen post-fertile test is there, that once the sperms are deposited into the vagina, if the cervical mucus contains antibodies, there the agglutination will take place. But here we are talking about agglutination of the semen itself, not deposited into the vagina. So it is an immunological problem. These are WHO parameters given in 2010. Okay. Now we will see the reasons for this abnormal semen. First, we'll see low volume. We are seeing that there can be ejaculatory dysfunction. There may be retrograde ejaculation. Instead of coming out of the urethra, it is going back into the bladder. Okay. There may be hypogonadism, and that is why the secretion of the amount of semen is less. Or it can be just a poor collection technique. If you are not advised well, the collection technique may be poor, and that is why the volume may be less. Acidic semen, usually it indicates ejaculatory duct obstruction or congenital absence of the vas. Or it can be chronic inflammation as well. Okay. Azoospermia or oligozoospermia, which is concentration of the sperm per ml. It can be because of genetic disorders. We have seen that spermatogenesis is commonly because of genetic disorders or endocrine disorders. The hormone control is not good. There may be varicocele, undescended testes, exposure to toxin, medications, genital tract obstruction can be there. That is, the sperms are produced into the testes, but they are not brought to the ejaculatory duct and they are not ejaculated out. There can be just idiopathic cause for this azoospermia or oligozoospermia. Now, asthenozoospermia, that is decreased or affected motility. It can be commonest is prolonged abstinence. If you are not told properly, the abstinence may be more. Okay. Anti-sperm antibodies may affect the motility. Partial genital tract obstruction causes delayed ejaculation, or it can be as good as prolonged abstinence. That is why the motility is affected. It can be infection into the seminal fluid, and that is why the motility of the sperm is affected. Or there may be a structural defect in the sperm, usually the neck defect or the tail defect, which will affect the motility of the sperm. And again, it can be idiopathic. We know that majority of the causes in male infertility, they are idiopathic. Okay. Abnormal morphology. We have seen structure of the sperm and what is the importance of each structure of the sperm. Okay. So the abnormal morphology, it can be because of genetic disorder. It can be because of undescended testes. It can be because of infection, exposure to toxin, radiation, or again, it can be idiopathic. Okay. So this was about semen analysis. Once we do semen analysis, we know that what further investigations need to be done. Okay. Hemogram, thyroid function, fasting and PP blood sugar levels, vitamin D levels, they are to be done in all patients, irrespective of semen analysis report. But if the semen analysis is abnormal, then we may have to do hormone assay to know that what exactly is the reason for abnormal sperm concentration or signs of androgen deficiency. In case where there is a deficiency in secondary sexual characters also, we can do hormone assay. But mainly because of less sperm concentration or no sperm concentration. What hormone assay we do? We do FSH, LH, testosterone and prolactin levels. They help us to diagnose the reason for low or absent sperms. Okay. If the spermatogenesis is normal and if there is an outflow tract defect, then these levels will be normal. But if there is a problem in production of the sperms, then these levels will be less, will be raised, or they will be abnormally low as well. Okay. So low gonadotropins or very high gonadotropin, they will indicate that the problem is not into the ejaculatory outflow tract, but problem is into the spermatogenesis. Okay. What is the role of imaging? We have to do ultrasound and color Doppler of the scrotum, which will tell us the scrotal volume and testicular volume as well. It will diagnose the hydrocele very well and the varicocele as well as the grade of varicocele. Because grade 1 or grade 2 varicocele is very normal. it may not indicate the surgery or surgical treatment. But grade 3 and 4 varicocele, they may indicate that the surgery is required. Okay. There is one more investigation. If we feel that we have seen that the FSH-LH is normal, that means spermatogenesis is taking place, but there is azoospermia, then we may do a vasogram, which will tell us that there is a site, there is a block, and there is a site of block. Okay. MRI is indicated when we feel that there are undescended testes, because undescended testes not only they will affect spermatogenesis, but they may undergo the neoplastic change as well. Okay. The genetic studies, they're not required in each and every patient. They are indicated in azoospermia or severe oligospermia, where we are not able to pinpoint the diagnosis just by hormone assay or by doing the imaging. Okay. Most common is cystic fibrosis, Klinefelter syndrome, chromosomal inversions and translocations, or microdeletion of Y chromosome. This microdeletion of Y chromosome can affect even the pregnancy outcome. That is, there may be a pregnancy, but there may be early fetal demise, or there may be missed abortion, IUDs. Coming to testicular biopsy. This testicular biopsy is indicated definitely in azoospermia. When we level azoospermia, we require at least minimum 2 samples 1 month apart, which are showing that there are no sperms over there. We should ensure the collection of the sample, because declaration of azoospermia is really very difficult. We know that there will be many social problems once we indicate that there is azoospermia. So once we diagnose that there is azoospermia, we have to advise them the testicular biopsy. Okay, it differentiates between testicular failure and obstruction into the vas. We have seen that the seminiferous tubules, the basal cells of these tubules, they are responsible for production of the sperms. So even if there is stimulation of the testes, if there is a failure of the testes to form sperms, there will be azoospermia. Okay, or there may be formation of the sperms, all right, but there is obstruction into the vas, or there may be problem in the maturation of the sperm. All these diagnoses can be done once we do testicular biopsy. Okay, it differentiates between primary gonadal failure and non-stimulation by anterior pituitary. That is, whether the testes are not responsive or testes are not getting the enough stimulus. All, of course, to be combined with hormone assay. The testicular biopsy and hormone assay will give us this diagnosis. Okay, the testicular biopsy, if we are suspecting that there is history of tuberculosis, if we know that the testicular volume is very less, then we may suspect that there is genital tuberculosis, and this testicular biopsy can give us the diagnosis. Okay. One more advantage of doing testicular biopsy is, even though the sperms are not able to come into the ejaculate, or if the concentration is very low, then the spermatozoa or spermatids, these are various levels of sperm maturation. They can be extracted from the testes, they may be cryopreserved, and they can be used for the treatment of the male infertility, which we are going to see in the next lecture. Okay, so this is one more advantage of doing testicular biopsy, and that is why even after so many investigations available, testicular biopsy, it retains its place into the treatment of male infertility, investigation and treatment of male infertility. Okay. Now we will come to sperm function test. Just not the count and concentration, but the sperm function is equally important. One of the sperm function tests is motility, which is usually done in a normal semen analysis. But further detailed studies are required if we don't come across major defect in the semen analysis and still the couple is not able to conceive, then we do various sperm function tests. Okay, the Manos fluorescent assay, it is a receptor assay. It knows ability of the sperm to recognize the zona pellucida, because the sperm is traveling through the tube. It should meet the ovum and it should recognize zona pellucida. then only it is able to pierce it. Okay. Sperm agglutination test. It is to detect immunological factor, which we have seen in a simulalysis, that is MAR test. Okay. Sperm cervical mucus contact test or post-fertile test, which we must have seen in a female infertility investigations. One more test is hypoosmotic swelling test. The sperms, they are deposited into the hypoosmotic saline solution, and the sperms which swell best, they are to be selected for IVF. If the sperms are not swelling, that means the membrane is not functioning well. So these are sperm function tests. So today we have seen what is male infertility, how important is male infertility, how we start with the evaluation, what is the role of history, what is the role of clinical examination, and what are the all investigations we do in a case of male infertility. Okay, so we have completed the reasons and investigations of female and male infertility in these 2 days. On Monday, we'll be seeing the treatment of fertility in total. Thank you.